Hello friends, this is Swapnil. Welcome back to the channel NetKingIT. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about AWS EC2 instance. We will discuss in detail. Also, we will launch one EC2 instance and I will show you how we can build Windows server and how we can access it from home network to that Windows servers on public IP. So let's start. So there are three types of tenancy for instances. So the first one is shared instance. This use multiple tenant hardware and this is the default EC2 tenancy type. So basically AWS provides common hardware on which we can build or launch our EC2 instance. Similarly, the other entity also can utilize the same hardware. They can also create the instances on the same hardware. So these logically separated from each other, but those are using the same hardware provided by AWS. Then next is dedicated instances. So dedicated instances and dedicated host are almost similar. Like the AWS will provide the hardware which will be dedicated for the specific tenant, or we can say specific entity. So that entity can create the multiple instances on this hardware as this hardware is dedicated for that entity. But only thing is dedicated instances tenancy type that don't provide visibility on the hardware like sockets and cores. A dedicated host provides the visibility into sockets and cores. Okay, I hope you understand these three tenancy types. While we are launching EC2 instance, it will select the default shared instance type, but there is an option that we can use the other tenancy types as well. So let's move on to the AWS management console where we will launch the EC2 instance on which we will build the Windows server. Okay, so now I am on the AWS management console. Let's select the one of the region. Let's select the Singapore now. So before we launching EC2 instance, there is some prerequisite that we need to consider. So basically we need to create one VPC and the subnet so we can launch EC2 instance under that subnet. Let me quickly show you network diagram so we can get more idea. So basically if you see the diagram, we are going to build the Windows server inside this public subnet. Okay. To build this EC2 instance or launch this EC2 instance, we required public subnet and the VPC under this region. So this is the primary requirement before we launching any EC2 instance, that is public subnet and the VPC. Okay, let's complete this prerequisite. We will create one VPC and we will configure one public subnet inside the VPC, and then we will launch the EC2 instance. And post that, there are further more settings that we need to do. That is, we need to create the route table. Then we have to provide the default route tables towards the internet gateway. So this EC2 instance can be accessible over the internet. So let's move on to the AWS management console to create VPC and the subnet before launching the EC2 instance. So this is the default VPC. We can use that, but let's create the new one. As per our requirement, we have the different CIDR. Let's create the VPC. User CIDR block 10.10.0.0/16. So now we have created the custom VPC. This is our VPC and the above one is the default VPC. Let's remove the default VPC to avoid the confusion. Delete the default VPC. Okay. So now we have single VPC in our Singapore region. Now next step is we need to create the subnet inside this VPC. Let's create a subnet. Select the VPC, give a name to the subnet. This will be the public subnet, as we need to provide the public IP to the instance inside this public subnet. Let's select the availability zone, then provide the subnet CIDR. Create. Okay, so now, so far we have created VPC and the subnet. Okay, now we have prerequisite configuration to launch our EC2 instance. Let's go to the EC2 instance dashboard, search for the EC2 services in search box. Okay, so there is an option to launch instance. Let's click on it to launch the instance. On this instance, this EC2 instance is nothing but the hardware provided by the AWS on which we are going to install the operating system, Windows operating system, right? So we have to select it. Similar to the Windows operating system, like we can install different operating systems as well. Like if we want to install the Palo Alto firewall or Fortinet firewall, that is also possible. Let me show you. You can browse that operating systems from here. For search the Palo Alto or Fortinet operating system, you can click here. Then we have to go to the marketplace. There is a AWS marketplace. In AWS marketplace, we can search for the operating systems VM for the Fortinet or Palo Alto. Here is the one example about the Fortinet firewall. So we can use it on that EC2 instance. Let me search for the Palo Alto. So you can see from this list, we can use any one of the operating system to install the VM on that EC2 instance. Okay, but you know, there are certain types of EC2 instance we have to select according to our requirement. Let me show you quickly. If you go to the document of Palo Alto firewall, there is a specific EC2 instance types are mentioned according to the requirement. See, let's say if you look at the model for VM700, you know, we can use 4x large type of instance size, okay, which provides the maximum 8 interfaces. Likewise, we can select the particular instance types from this table. So we have to refer this table before we are selecting any instance type to install our Palo Alto firewall or any operating system on the instance. So let's move back to the EC2 instance dashboard where we are installing our Windows operating system. Let's click on launch instance. I will give a name Windows, as we are going to launch Windows Server on this EC2 instance. So we are launching an EC2 instance where we will use the Windows operating system. So that's why I given a name Windows 01. Let's select the Windows operating system. Now it will select by default. Let's keep it as it is. There is a drop down menu that we can use multiple, but let's use this one. Now there is a option to select the instance type. If you drop down, then we can search the specific instance type which is supporting our operating system. So for Windows operating system, I will select the T3 micro, which is supported instance type for the Windows. Also, there is one more thing. We can compare the instance types from here. Let me click on it. See, there are the many types of instances are listed here. Also, there are few instance types are free for free tier account. Let me show you that. So if you go to instances, there is an instance types option. if you go here, these are the instance types provided by AWS. So we can find the second column which says free tier eligible. So these are showing false, but we can search for the which are free. Let's select with the filter type free tier eligible equal to true. So see, these are the instance types are free for free tier account. My account is a free tier account, so I can use one of them as a free. So I will use the T3 micro. So again, let's go back to the instance to launch instance. Select launch instance button. Give a name Windows. We will select the operating system Windows. Let's select the T3 micro instance type. Then there is a key pair option. See, we have to create new key pair which help us to generate the credentials for Windows Server. So with the help of these credentials, we can log in into Windows Server. So let's create the key pair. Give a name. I will give a name key Windows. So this key pair will get downloaded on my local machine. Okay, next is network setting. So these are the default settings which we can see here. It is automatically selected the VPC as we have single VPC here. Then subnet which we have created single subnet inside this VPC. Now if you see here, there is an option auto assign public IP. So I can enable it to get it assigned the public IP. So when we will create our Windows server, then it will get assigned the public IP automatically. If we disable it, then we have to manually assign the public IP to that Windows server. Let's keep it enabled. Then there is an option about the security group. So it will create new security group and it will get associated to this instance. If there is an existing security group, we can select existing security group and we can search for it. Okay, so there is a one by default, but let's create a new one. Okay, we will give a name Windows security group. Okay, we will keep a description as it is. While launching the EC2 instance, it will get created the new security group and it will allow the access whatever we will mention inside the inbound security rule. Okay, so for now they have provided by default the RDP access to our Windows server. So this one is already allowed. So let's keep it as it is. We require this access after launching this instance, and once that Windows server gets up, we will access that Windows server with the remote desktop connection. The next is storage. This one is a root volume. Basically, by default, it gets attached to the instance. It's a root volume, so it contains the operating system and bootloaders. We can add additional volume, but this additional volume we can attach or detach from the instance. This additional volume we can use for the database or storage of data. Let's remove it for now. Okay, these are the settings which are enough for us to launch the instance. Let's launch instance now. See, within few seconds we are ready with the instance. So our Windows server is ready to access. If you see, the instance state is showing us running. Okay, and we can see in the details, this is the instance ID. Also, it got public IP assigned as we had selected auto assigned IP while launching the instance. So this Windows server now have the public IP address. So we can access this Windows server with this IP address. Also, if you see, it received the IP address from our public subnet. This is the private IP which get assigned from our public subnet, that is 10.10.1.133. Okay, so far looks good. EC2 instance has been launched and we now able to see the Windows server is running fine. Okay, so let me go back to the diagram and see what are the steps we have completed so far. So if you see the diagram, we have launched EC2 instance where we build Windows Server under the public subnet. Now we have to access this Windows Server from my home laptop through the internet. Okay, to access it, I need to access it on the public IP. Okay, so far we have created VPC and public subnet, but rest of the things also required to access this Windows Server. Okay, so for which we need to associate this subnet with the route table. We need to put the default route towards internet gateway inside this route table, so the server can be reachable over the internet. So I have mentioned a few steps here, which are the high level steps that we need to consider to launch the EC2 instance and get the access from home internet. So these are the region we have already selected. We created the VPC and we have created the public subnet. So these remaining 4 steps are pending, that is required to get the access to this Windows Server. Okay, let's jump on to the AWS Management Console back. So far we have created VPC and subnet, and we have launched our Windows Server inside that subnet. Let's go to the VPC dashboard. So this is the VPC and subnet. Now we have to create the internet gateway which we will associate with our VPC. Let's create one. So internet gateway is created, but we have to attach it with the VPC. Let's attach to our VPC. Okay, now we have to put the route towards the internet gateway in the routing table. Now there is a default route table, but we are not going to use that. Let's create the new route table for our public subnet. Let's create one route table. We'll give a name RT public. Select the VPC. Okay, now our route table is created. Now next thing is we have to associate our subnet to this route table. Let's go to the subnet association. Select the subnet and add the default route towards the internet gateway. Okay, so we have done with the prerequisite. So we have created VPC, we have created subnet inside this VPC, then we have associated these subnets with this route table. Okay, then we have put default route towards the internet gateway for the internet access. Okay, so these prerequisites are completed. So let's try to access the EC2 instance from home internet. Let me go to the EC2 dashboard to see the EC2 public IP address. So now we are on the EC2 dashboard. Go to instances. So this is the instance or Windows Server which we have created. So the instance state is running. Let's copy this public IP and see if we able to reach the RDP port from my home internet or home machine. Let me log in into command prompt of my home machine. I'm doing a telnet to this public IP to see if I able to reach on port 3389, which is the RDP port. See, the port is open. So basically the security group gets assigned to this instance. Let me show you. We can see the security group inside the security tab. This is the security group. If you see the inbound rule, while we are launching the instance, we have created this inbound rule which allows the port 3389. Hence we able to telnet the this instance IP, public IP on this port 3389. Let's try to take a RDP, remote desktop connection for this Windows machine. From my home machine, let's try to connect. See, we able to connect. It is asking us for the credentials. So let's first gather the credentials. So you have to select the Windows machine here, then go to the actions, then go to security. It will ask to get the Windows password. Okay, click on it. It will ask to upload the private key which we downloaded while we are launching the instance. Let me call here. Okay, decrypt password. So it has generated this password. So we can use this password to log in into Windows Server. Let me note it down. Now go back to the RDP. Let me copy the public IP which I am going to take a RDP of this Windows machine. Connect. Now, the default username will be administrator. And this is the password. Let's try. Great. See, now we are able to connect to this Windows machine from my home machine. I'm using my home internet and I able to access this Windows machine. So let's check if this Windows server have the access to internet or not. Let's try to open the internet website. See, apparently we have the internet access, so there is no issue. Let me type any URL here. If you see, we are able to access the internet from our Windows server which we have launched. I can show you the IP address of this Windows machine which we have launched. So this machine has a public IP address 54.169.227.179 and the private IP address which belongs to our configured public subnet, that is 10.10.1.133. We can see here on the AWS console as well. See, this is the public IP and this is the private IP from our public subnet. I hope this video was informative for you and thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe this channel. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.